This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Gabriella Power. Thank you for your company. Well, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced Israel will be ending trade barriers and tariffs on the US.
I can tell you that I said to the President a very simple thing. We will eliminate the trade deficit with the United States. We intend to do it very quickly. We think it's the right thing to do. And we're going to also eliminate trade barriers, a variety of trade barriers that have been put up unnecessarily. And I think Israel can serve as a model for many countries who ought to do the same.
Joining us now is commentator and TV personality Emily Austin. Emily, it is great to see you. This is a win for the US. We know there's plenty of chaos and fear and panic around what Donald Trump is doing, but we're already seeing his strategy produce results. What Trump is doing is putting America at the centre of global negotiations. He's forcing allies to reconsider their trade relationships, and Trump has put leverage back on the table. And now Israel's decision today is certainly sending messages, or a strong message, to other countries.
Absolutely. Ultimately, we have to remember Trump, before he was the best president, was in fact a very successful businessman. And today, out of all of the days since Trump implemented the tariffs, only further solidified that this is indeed a reciprocal tariff. And he's showing these other countries, if you're going to play this unfair game, so will we. So either you negotiate or we're going to just kind of give you a taste of your own medicine. So Netanyahu was one great example of one of the first leaders to come out and say, well, if we give you zero tariffs, let's call your bluff. Let's see if you'll reciprocate. And he, in fact, is. Secondly, we also saw today the EU president, Commission president, stated that they're open to doing a zero for zero tariff. So this shows the American people, look, he has a plan. You just need to let it play its course and not panic prematurely.
Absolutely. It's art of the deal playing out, and we're seeing results come in already. Now, Donald Trump and Netanyahu also spoke about the war in Gaza. Trump said that he thinks that it will stop at some point, and he also spoke about his potential solution for Gaza because he wants to see the killing stop. This is what he had to say.
I think it's an incredible piece of important real estate. And if you take the people, the Palestinians, and move them around to different countries, and you have plenty of countries that will do that, and you really have a freedom zone. You call it the freedom zone, a free zone, a zone where people aren't going to be killed every day. That's a hell of a place. It's you know what I call it, a great location.
Now, Trump is, of course, being criticised for putting solutions forward, for putting ideas on the table. You've just returned from Israel. What's the feeling there? As we know, there are more than 50 hostages still being held in Gaza. What do you make of what Trump is putting forward and what he had to say at the White House today?
First and foremost, I really admire his humanity. You know, when he talks about the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the war, he always talks about the senseless murders and deaths from all the bombs. And when he speaks about Gaza and Israel, he talks about all the people whose lives don't need to end in this war. But ultimately, yes, this war is going to finish soon because Israel is very close to winning this war. And when we look towards what's next, unfortunately, until Trump stepped in, it seemed like everybody didn't want to get their hands in Gaza and help fix what's still a problem. Okay, maybe Hamas is out of power, but what's next? And can we keep Hamas out of power? So Trump has put forward a plan that America can take it, and we know America can surely handle the threat of terrorism. I mean, look what we're doing in Yemen. But he also mentioned today multiple times throughout the presser that he's open to other plans, as if he's almost encouraging other countries, step in, join us in helping Gaza recoup, and talking about, you know, dispersing the Palestinians throughout other countries. Jordan's 98% Palestinian. Egypt had a large Palestinian population. Kuwait used to until they expelled them. I think all of the countries who claim to be so pro-Palestine should be more open to accepting the refugees into their country.
Yeah, absolutely. And Trump's message today is certainly putting pressure on those countries to step up. Now, another 4 Columbia University students have had their student visas revoked. This is as the US government's decision to deport international students involved in these pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel protests. And it takes the number of protesters who have lost their visas to more than 50 across the United States. So this is still going up. What difference is this going to make in making colleges a safer place?
50 is too low of a number to make me satisfied, but I think Marco Rubio said it best. He mentioned over and over that a visa is a privilege, it's not a right. If America is giving you an opportunity to come into our country and give you the opportunity to come to a great school, especially like Columbia, at least it used to be, and study and learn something and master anything, and you take that opportunity and you start vandalizing buildings, causing riots, promoting violence, chanting globalize the intifada, death to America, death to Israel, burning flags, why should you have the privilege to learn in this country when there are millions of other people who will come here and do good and make the country a better place? And keyword, assimilate. It's like they want to come to our country, but they don't want to assimilate, and they want to spread values of terrorism, promoting violence. So 50 is just a small number compared to what I've seen go on campuses. There are hundreds, if not thousands more of students who need their visas revoked.
Yeah, well, hopefully we will see that happen. Very well said. Protests have taken place across the United States demonstrating against Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And as usual, we saw protesters who couldn't really even explain what they were doing there. And there are reports suggesting that some of these protesters were even paid to attend. But this protester sums it up for us, that Gen Z protesters, they wanted to stay at home.
I'm at the protest right now in New York City, anti-Trump, anti-fascist protest, and I have one question. Where the is Gen Z? These people are cheering, they're talking like it's just the 60s, it's just like the 60s, and they're having conversations and walking slowly. There's no fight here, there's no youth here. It's all 30-somethings and their children, and then seniors, and God bless everybody who showed up today, but I'm really disappointed in the youth turnout. Where is the youth turnout? This is your future that is going to be impacted by the actions of the Trump administration. And it's really this easy to show up in numbers and show your government that they're outnumbered. That is the point of a protest, to show that your government, that they are outnumbered.
Emily, what do you make of this, as we saw not many young people taking to the streets?
Before I comment on that, I want to point out she's wearing keffiyeh. I highly encourage her to go to any country in the Middle East other than Israel. And I want to see her try to protest against the government of the country that she's in. That's just a fun challenge I propose to her. Secondly, where is Gen Z? Laura Loomer tweeted, and she put receipts on her tweet, that so many of the buses that were chartered to DC, to New York, were in fact tracked back to the CCP. And every time I see a protest, I'm very skeptical as to how these people take time out of their day to just parade the streets, and they look like they're having fun with it too. And it always turns out that if you track the money, it's heavily funded and coordinated. Notice today, it was raining in DC, it was raining in New York. There were no protests. They're not even motivated by the cause. They're just being paid to do so. And it seems like they're unemployed, so why not?
Yeah, absolutely. And as we saw there, some people didn't even know really why they were there, what they were protesting about. But we spoke about tariffs at the start of the show, and all we get here in Australia is just the news of what a disaster this is. But how do the majority of Americans feel? Well, a new poll shows that Donald Trump is more popular now than before he announced the sweeping tariffs. This Daily Mail poll found that Trump's approval rating has gone up to 53%. It's a 4-point increase over last week when it was 49%. It's a pretty strong indication of how many Americans are really behind Donald Trump.
Right. I mean, listen, he won this vote not by a small margin. He won by a landslide. I'm actually pleasantly surprised to see his approval rating went up since the tariffs, which makes me a bit relieved, because I figured we were all panicking too prematurely. Now, in terms of the tariffs, everyone would be lying if they say in some way or form they're not being impacted now. But I call it growing pains. And I'm glad that we're starting to see a little bit more of the patience that will unroll eventually the effects of the tariffs.
Yes.
But, you know, before something gets better, it has to break a little bit. And I think Trump is kind of testing the limits of other countries to see where he can meet in a negotiating point. But since Netanyahu came out, since the EU came out, I think the goal is to genuinely lower how other countries are abusing our system. You know, Biden's been asleep for 4 years.
He has.
The average American person just did a little bit of research and saw how Joe Biden allowed us to get walked all over by other countries in terms of tariffs, That should be where the outrage is directed, not Trump trying to fix it and us going through a little bit of growing pains in the process.
Absolutely. Emily, before I let you go, I just have to ask you about Snow White. Disney's Snow White remake is on track to lose $115 million. According to Deadline, it cost more than $400 million just to make the film, but then it also includes another $270 million, which includes $270 million in production costs and another $140 million in promotional related costs. But the film is, of course, it's the lowest IMDb rating of all time, sitting at 1.6 out of 10. What do you put this down to? Are you surprised? Do we blame Disney or Rachel Zegler for this?
I do blame Disney. I blame them for casting someone as woke as her. I blame them for taking the route of wokeness. I want to remind the viewers, Snow White is called Snow White because she's white as snow. Now, Rachel is an attractive woman, but she's not Snow White. She's very anti-Trump. She's very anti-Israel. She felt that it was necessary during her movie promotion to start indulging in her political advocacy. And when you turn off Trump's approval rate was what you said, 53%. So you have more than half of the country supporting Trump, and you took the route of going against him. You just lost half of your fan base. And it's a shame when you see a lot of Hollywood actors come out, against, let's say, Trump or any politician. Personally, I can't watch another Mark Ruffalo movie. I can't watch half of these actors anymore in Hollywood because they always go woke. And you know the line, go woke, go broke. So they knew what they were doing.
Yep, and Disney only has itself to blame. Emily Austin, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. So good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Joining us now is Senior Editor-at-Large at Newsweek, Josh Hammer. Josh, great to see you. Donald Trump has confirmed that the United States will engage directly with Iran in a high-level meeting happening this Saturday. Trump says that he hopes the talks will be successful because we're getting into dangerous territory. This is what he had to say.
We're having direct talks with Iran, and they've started. It'll go on Saturday. We have a very big meeting, and we'll see what can happen. And I think everybody agrees that doing a deal would be preferable to doing the obvious. And the obvious is not something that I want to be involved with, or frankly, that Israel wants to be involved with if they can avoid it. So we're going to see if we can avoid it. But it's getting to be very dangerous territory. And hopefully those talks will be successful. And I think it would be in Iran's best interests if they are successful. We hope that's going to happen.
The obvious being bombing Iran. Do you have confidence that the talks will be successful?
No, of course not, Gabrielle. I mean, you're talking here about a fanatical, theocratic Islamist dictatorship in Iran. I mean, this is a regime that is totally nuts. I mean, this is a regime that literally chants in their legislature every single day, death to Israel, death to America. They call Israel the little Satan, America the big Satan. Gabrielle, I was giving a talk in Washington, D.C. last summer, and someone came up to me after my talk and said that he actually grew up in Iran. He actually was in Tehran until he was 16 years old. Then his family fled to the United States. He told me that literally every day in school when he was growing up, they made them all put their hand on their heart and solemnly vow that they would do all that they could on that day to bring the death and destruction to the little Satan of Israel and the big Satan of America. They actually genuinely believe this. This is regime ideology. This is not a cold, calculating people there. They are theocratic Islamists who are motivated by all that entails. So no, I absolutely do not have any confidence whatsoever that this is going to go particularly well. I don't have a huge issue with sitting down with them one final time, two final times, whatever there. I mean, when Donald Trump's, is issuing threats, the kind of threats that he is issuing today at the White House with Netanyahu there, those are not empty threats there. So he's making very clear that there's going to be a military option on the table. Yeah. So at this point there, I don't see a whole lot of downside to sitting with them, but I would be remiss if I said that I think it's going to go anywhere in a positive direction, just given the nature of who they're dealing with here, frankly.
Yeah, of course. Well, Trump said the U.S. military campaign against the Houthis in Yemen has been very successful, and Pete Hegseth was very strong on this today, insisting that it is only going to get worse for the Houthis until they stop shooting at our ships.
Whether it's underground facilities, weapons manufacturing, bunkers, troops in the open, air defense assets, we are not going to relent And it's only to get more unrelenting until the Houthis declare they will stop shooting at our ships. And we've been very clear to the Iranians as well. They should not continue to provide support to the Houthis, and that message has been made very clear. So we have a lot more options and a lot more pressure to apply, and we know, because we see the reports, how devastating this campaign has been in them.
And this comes after Donald Trump shared a video on his social media account of the US strike on Yemen, claiming that they will never sink our ships again. What do you make of the comments out of the White House today?
So first of all, Pete Hegseth is awesome, isn't he? I mean, talk about just a guy, just a guy who gets it. I was grinning ear to ear when I first heard that he was going to be named Secretary of Defense there, and I think he's off to a great start thus far. A guy who is really turning around the Pentagon. The Pentagon is a bureaucracy here in the United States that has been ailing, that has been hurting. They have suffered massive recruitment shortfalls over the past few years. There was a crisis of morale within the Pentagon, within the armed forces. Pete Hegseth is the perfect guy to turn this around. And I continue just to be deeply pleased with the job that he is doing. When it comes to the Houthi threat, specifically there, Donald Trump means what he says, and he's the kind of guy who, again, he's not mincing words. When he talks, he is also going to very much walk the walk. And, you know, there's been something of a debate within certain pockets of let's call it the America First movement, the MAGA movement here, as to whether or not Donald Trump's strikes on the Houthis are consistent with his general foreign policy worldview, to which I emphatically answer, yes, I think it is deeply consistent there. It reminds me, frankly, of when he took out Qasem Soleimani, the arch IRGC Iranian terrorist, at the Baghdad, Iraq airport back in January of 2020. Donald Trump's foreign policy is very simple. He's not looking to start wars. He's not looking to mess with you. But if you mess with the United States, then he's going to punch back twice as hard. Qasem Soleimani learned that the hard way, and now the Houthis are learning the same lesson the hard way as well. The Houthis have fired on hundreds and hundreds of ships, many of which are either flagged by the United States or are going towards the United States, as far as like where the actual destination of the commercial products on board are. And this has a tangible effect on the American consumer, especially given all the trade war issues. Right now, the Houthis are only going to increase prices. So it's not just a local issue. It's very much a global issue as well, given that 10 to 20% roughly of global commerce flows there on the Red Sea, to which the Houthis have taken this hostage. So Donald Trump sees the American interest. He's acting in accordance with that interest there, and I look forward to seeing what he does from here.
Well, on the global issues, the trade war between the US and China is on the verge of becoming even more hostile. Let's talk about those tariffs. Donald Trump's issued another threat to Beijing. Now, the president threatened an additional 50% tariffs on China. He said if China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, the United States will impose additional tariffs on China of 50% effective April 9th. Additionally, all talks with China concerning their requested meetings with us will be terminated. Negotiations with other countries, which have also requested meetings, will begin taking place immediately. I mean, Josh, wow. How do you see this playing out? As Trump mentioned there, it also comes after the White House said that 50 other nations have now reached out to negotiate with Donald Trump, but he's not backing down.
You know, Gabrielle, I've been talking about this in my own show, the Josh Hammer Show. So I think a lot of people think of MAGA and America First as being an immigration-centric movement. And let's be very clear. I mean, it is. I am not disputing that premise there. When Donald Trump came down that gilded escalator back in the summer of 2015 at Trump Tower there, we all remember that speech talking about how Mexico is sending rapists. I mean, there's been a lot of immigration focus to MAGA and President Trump's general political success going back over a decade now. Having said that, Donald Trump on a personal level, him as a man, you can go back 45, 50 years to find Donald Trump saying the stuff that he is still saying today about tariffs and about China in particular. He has always understood properly that China is America's #1 threat to the United States when it comes to geopolitics, when it comes to diplomacy, military, and yes, when it comes to the economy as well there. He has always been a dissenter to his class, to his fellow ultra millionaires and billionaires when it comes to this idea that bringing China into the fold of Western-style nations, when it comes to China's ascension to the World Trade Organization in 2001. Donald Trump dissented time and time again. He's been proven right, because China has taken our manufacturing jobs here in the United States. They are manipulating our currency. They are hoarding all sorts of our very important equipment, when it comes to the PPE, the personal protective equipment that we need at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. They have a shockingly high control over the very ingredients that go into Americans' basic, everyday, day-to-day pharmaceuticals. And perhaps even most troubling, right now, they are threatening in increasingly bellicose fashion to do a full-scale amphibian invasion of the island of Taiwan, which is home to Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, the globe's #1 semiconductor manufacturer, on which Americans are deeply reliant when it comes to everything from our iPhones to our F-35 fighter jets. So, I mean, we've really put ourselves in a pickle, a massive, massive, massive pickle when it comes to this idea that economic liberalization with China could somehow lead to political liberalization. This was this utter academic gobbledygook that was peddled by elites of both parties for decades on end. It has catastrophically failed. Donald Trump, to his great credit, presciently saw that decades before it failed, and he's continuing to put those policies in place to try to reverse the calamitous failures of globalization run amok. So, you know, people can quibble with parts of the broader tariff policy. He's obviously slapped tariffs on a lot of nations besides China, but when it comes to China in particular, I say go for it. I mean, it is time to duke this out. It is time to try to rebalance our trade with our nation's #1 geopolitical foe this century, which is very clearly the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're not alone in that view. Look, big news in the US today. The Supreme Court has cleared the way for the Trump administration to restart deportations of alleged Venezuelan gang members. In a 5-4 ruling, the court allowed the use of the rarely invoked Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to remove alleged members of the gang without a hearing. Trump wrote on social media, the Supreme Court has upheld the rule of law in our nation by allowing a president, whoever that may be to able to secure our borders and protect our families and our country itself. A great day for justice in America. Josh, this also sends a very clear message to those who are in the country illegally.
Yeah, and it's kind of shocking in a way that the Supreme Court even has to rule this way. I mean, this really ought to be so obvious that it kind of baffles the mind that the court would even need to call in the first place there. But I mean, give credit where credit is due. The court did rule the right way, albeit it was a 5-4 decision. I mean, it really should have been a 9-0 decision. And I will have to say that I find it troubling that Amy Coney Barrett, one of Trump's first 3 picks from his first term, continues to join the liberals in a lot of high-profile cases. That continues to be a trend that I am very closely following there. But this is bread and butter executive power. I mean, Article 2 of our Constitution establishes the executive branch and defines the executive power as being what the president wields. And the executive power includes, going back 2+ centuries here in American case law, the ability to secure and enforce this nation's immigration laws. If you are here in the United States as an alien, by the way, this applies whether you are an illegal actually or also a legal alien, you don't have a due process right to remain in this country against the national will. If the American people, through their elected officials in the Congress and the executive branch, decide that we don't want you here anymore, we can deport you essentially at any time for any reason whatsoever. This is known as the plenary power doctrine in constitutional law. It was taught to me in law school. It's a fairly well-known legal doctrine. So again, I find it baffling that the courts even feel a need to get involved here in the first place. I think the executive so clearly has this ability there. Good for Donald Trump, though. It's a good win. Frankly, I think there's going to be a lot more to come because on the law, Donald Trump continues to be more correct than his very outspoken, albeit very incorrect critics.
I have to ask you about these protesters who have been out over the weekend protesting against Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And I just love this when reporters actually go out and speak to some of them, find out why they are there, why they're holding up the signs that they're holding, because some of them accidentally reveal that they have no idea what they're even protesting. Take a look at this.
So what makes Trump a fascist? What makes Trump a fascist?
He does things without
You gotta talk loud. I don't have my mic on.
I'm not really good into interviews.
Sorry?
He just does everything he wants and not following laws or he's a convicted felon, that's all I know.
What's that?
So paper gave me, yeah.
Who gave you that?
The people that gave me the sign. It's a free sign.
Oh, someone gave you the sign, and then they gave you the handout. So are you reading it now to try to answer the question?
Yeah, but I mean,
can I see that? Can you hold that up?
I'm just not.
I'm just curious.
Maybe you can have it.
I can have it?
Yeah, you can have it.
Alrighty. So where did you get the sign?
All the way in the gatekeeper's house.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just pretty cool.
And that's another one? They gave you 2 pieces of paper? Can I have that one too?
Yes, you can have both.
Oh, okay. So what brings you guys out here today?
Just because I saw people were hanging out with people from...
Yeah, same thing as everyone else, executive overreach.
Because they're very angry about what's going on, about Trump and fascism trying to take this wonderful country with all these wonderful people, and there are great chants going on. Immigrants welcome here, trans people are welcome here, trans kids are welcome here. This is in Massachusetts, kid. Get your hands off of it. All right, I'll say hi some more later, if I can manage to post this. Bye.
Yeah, it really gives you an insight into who these people are that are turning out at these protests, and some of them just have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, talk about a bunch of psychopaths. I mean, psychopaths combined with paid protesters. I mean, this is a well-known tactic of these astroturfed left-wing movements, whether it was the Black Lives Matter movement back in the summer of George Floyd in 2020, whether it's a lot of the pro-Hamas stuff on university campuses here in the U.S. since October 7th, and now we see this. It's not all astroturf. Some of it is genuine grassroots, but a shockingly high percentage of this is totally fabricated from the top on down. Paid protesters continue to be a very real thing there. And a lot of people like this guy, whether they're paid or not, they just get caught up in the noise there. And yeah, they have no freaking idea whatsoever what they're talking about. By the way, this is not a phenomenon limited simply to the left in the United States. The left all across the globe seems to have a problem with actually knowing what they are protesting. I think back to a couple of years ago when Israel, prior to October 7th, was having its whole judicial reform debate there. And a lot of the anti-Netanyahu left-wing protesters there similarly had these street interviews, and they would ask these protesters, so what exactly do you object to when it comes to the proposed judicial reform? They couldn't answer. They literally could not answer other than that we hate Netanyahu. Same thing here. They have no idea what they're protesting other than that they hate Donald Trump. They pick out these individuals. They choose to hate them for nonsensical, personality-driven reasons there, Gabrielle, there, but they have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to actual policy, substantive issues, or anything like that there. You know, frankly, there was a Supreme Court opinion 10 years ago here in the U.S. where the late, great Justice Antonin Scalia was mocking the cartoonish way that the majority opinion in this case was written. And what he said was that if I were to put words in this order, I would have the sense of shame and self-awareness to hide my head in a bag. And frankly, watching that video that I just watched with you, this protester who has no idea what he's talking about, that same line kind of comes back to me. If I were that person, I would hope that I would have enough sense of shame to hide my head in a bag for a very long time.
100%. And it does just remind me of those pro-Hamas protests that we saw take place in America, around the world. People don't know what river, what sea they're talking about. It's just embarrassing. And that's why these reporters need to go out and actually speak to some of the protesters and find out what on earth they're doing there. They can't even tell us. Now, Kamala Harris is back with a message, which the left-wing media is, of course, describing as powerful. But let's take a listen to her speak at this Leading Women Defined Summit.
Fear has a way of being contagious. Yeah. Okay. When one person has fear, it has a way of spreading to those around them and spreading. And we are witnessing that, no doubt. But I say this also, my dear friends. Courage is also contagious. Courage is also contagious.
Josh, you inspired?
You know, I'm not sure how tasty that word salad is that she just spat out there, but I would imagine that it does not go down particularly well. I mean, Kamala Harris has to be the cringiest modern phenomenon in all of contemporary American politics. I mean, she has consistently failed upwards every single time of her career, from a local prosecutor in the San Francisco Bay Area to being Attorney General of California to U.S. Senator from California to Vice President of the United States to running as the nominee for president after the bloodless coup of Joe Biden. I mean, she has failed upwards every single time, and I use that choice of words deliberately because she's literally failing upwards. She's not been successful in literally any of the jobs that I just named, yet she continues to get promotion until finally she was stopped, praise be to God, by Donald Trump this past November. The question for Kamala Harris is, Will she give it a go again in the year 2028? And the current polling here in the United States shows that if she were to throw her hat into the ring, she probably would be the front runner, which to me indicates that the Democratic Party has learned nothing. They have learned absolutely, positively nothing. You couple what we just heard from Kamala Harris with Barack Obama speaking this past weekend at Hamilton College in upstate New York, a similar quip from Jimmy Carville, the old Clinton advisor, who as recently as a year or two ago was starting to sound a little sober and moderate, and now he's basically comparing Trump to the brown shirts of the Nazis back in the 40s there. I mean, this party has lost their everlasting mind, and they have a long way to go to pull themselves out of the abyss. Frankly, again, to kind of go back to this whole point about hiding your head in a bag, they're not showing the sense of self-awareness there. You got to recognize what you're doing wrong. You got to get over your sense of denial in order to start to get back to the middle there. And I'm not seeing it right now from anyone, from Kamala Harris to Barack Obama or any of these clowns, frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. The left have not learnt their lesson, and neither have the mainstream media. Sonny Hostin on The View believes that there are plenty of Trump voters out there that now wish they got Kamala Harris. Take a look at this.
I bet you there are a lot of people that voted for Trump that wish that Kamala Harris was in the White House. A lot of people who didn't vote.
Josh, if you want fake news, just put on The View.
Yeah. This reminds me of Sonny Hostin a couple of days after the election this past November. She said that the only reason that Donald Trump beat Kamala Harris was due to lingering sexism and racism in America. And at that time, that statement was viewed as so outlandish on the set of The View that it even got Alyssa Farah to kind of shriek up and say, that's not true. That's not right. And Alyssa Farah was the token former Trump White House person there. She's the quote unquote center right person. She's not center right in any sense of the term there. You know, in order to tick her off, you've really gone too far. But I mean, who watches The View at this point? I mean, I genuinely wonder what they're actually. I genuinely find myself wondering whenever I see these clips go viral from people like Sonny Hostin, sometimes Joy Behar, or Whoopi Goldberg. I genuinely ask, who in the world is actually watching it? I mean, what kind of ridiculous self-induced echo chamber are the people that are tuning into this absolute drivel that is lacking anything remotely resembling coherent or cogent analysis, anything remotely resembling a single scintilla of sophisticated or intellectual thought there? It's just total absolute garbage. And frankly, if I were the producer, again, to kind of use our theme of our conversation, Gabriella, I would want to hide my head in a bag for a little while because this is just absolute drivel that is going out here on American television.
Yeah, that absolutely sums it up. Senior Editor at Large at Newsweek, Josh Hammer, thank you so much for making the time to speak to us here on Power Hour. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
President Donald Trump is defending his reciprocal tariffs as the trade war between China and the US escalates. But how is AI playing into this? Joining us is Rion Al, the former lead of AI and innovation at the Turner Institute. Rion, it's great to see you. So just hours after Donald Trump announced a 34% tariff on China, which could go up even further now, China released an AI-generated music video blasting the move. This is what China Global Television Network released.
Liberation Day, as you know, on April 2nd. From this moment on, America's decline is over.
Liberation Day promised us the stars, but tariffs kill our cheap Chinese cars.
I just spent $33 on dinner tonight.
Just hot air from your
What are you talking about? Was $8.25 now $6.89? Like this is some amazing deal.
Higher food prices.
Are you getting sick and tired of rising food? Food prices are again going up,
especially for eggs and meat.
Rian, it's interesting, this AI video is coming from China, but it's targeting Americans. Can you talk to us about the concerns that overseas countries are using AI to potentially influence domestic politics?
Yeah, well, Gabriella, this is really nothing new. This is a continuation of a policy of foreign agents from foreign countries who for a long time have wanted to influence not just, of course, the American election, which we see in this case, but the Australian election and, of course, elections around the world. And it is, of course, the ultimate form of influence to be able to then push your own sort of agenda. And so this is where AI has basically come in. It allows you to generate not just false text, but false images, false audio, false admittingly catchy songs, and say, well, if a picture, can tell 1,000 words, then an AI-generated picture or video or audio can change 1,000 minds, and let's try and influence, people not just in our country, but in countries around the world.
It's interesting. What are the dangers of that? If people are on the receiving end, they're seeing these pictures, they're seeing these AI-generated videos, how powerful is that, and what are kind of the long-term consequences of it?
Well, if we take the truth as sort of the fundamental bedrock of our democracy, then it's pretty easy to see there's actually two very distinct harms of AI technology. Number one is that for every deepfaked or AI image that is put out there, there is going to be a subset of the audience who sees it and either does not realize it is fake or does not have the time to discern whether it is real or fake, and comes away in some part with a belief that whatever they've seen in front of them is the truth. So there's that distorting of reality that happens. And there's also the cover that this technology is going to provide, and we've seen it already in numerous examples where, since this technology exists, people are using it as an excuse for actually real content. So real videos, real leaked audio recordings, they're being dismissed globally as AI deepfakes. In both cases, it's very dangerous because we lose that sense of what the truth actually is.
Absolutely.
And the average person doesn't have the time to sit there and think, oh, what's going on? They're going to get a little bit stuck on what the truth is.
Here in Australia, we're just weeks away from the federal election. We're seeing both major parties use AI images in their campaign. How is this helping them, and what are the benefits of AI in our politics?
Well, we go, and I talk a lot about the harms, but of course, if we step back, there are a lot of benefits. AI is all about abundance, and what it's giving the major parties as well as the minor parties is an ability to have a resource that allows you to produce more content quicker. It allows you to create, as I mentioned before, not just text, but images, audio, catchy songs, all these sorts of things that are then able to influence the sort of people who are seeing this content on a sort of more visceral level. And it's allowing them to do this quicker, it's allowing them to do this faster, and it's allowing them to reach more people. So there are benefits certainly to this abundance that the technology brings, but we do have to watch out for the harms.
Absolutely, and as AI continues to play a bigger part in many aspects of our lives, what advice do you have for us?
Well, I'd say that the solution is going to be threefold, especially with this sort of issue. So number one is probably going to be the government, and I'd say that we have to be careful of how much influence the government has with this sort of thing. But at the base level, as we mentioned before, with this sort of foreign interference, we need to have really harsh and strict rules governing the way that foreign governments are influencing or putting content to our domestic audience to influence our elections. So that's sort of pillar number one. I think pillar number two comes down to the AI companies themselves. Again, we don't want them actually deciding what can and cannot be made with their tools, because that's a very fine line and dangerous line. What we do want is clear protections for political content, whether there's a label on clearly political content or some other form. That's going to help people who are seeing this content online to realize that what they're seeing is not actually real work. But finally, I think the advice for the audience in general, and this is the one good thing that will come out of all of this, is that you're going to have to be more politically aware, and you're going to have to be more careful, which necessitates, I guess, Gabriella, more involvement in our politics, which is always a good thing. We have X and we have community notes. We have Meta trying to do a very similar thing. All of it's coming towards a crowdsourced fact-checking process that allows people to help other people figure out what is real and what's not in this increasingly untrue world.
Yeah, it's brilliant to see, brilliant to be a part of. Stepping away from politics, while we are talking about AI, the race to use AI to potentially cure diseases is already underway. Billions of dollars has been poured into AI-first biotechs. I have to ask you, what are your thoughts? Are we going to be able to see AI at one point cure cancer and other diseases, and how far away could this be?
Well, that's certainly the dream, and it's the dream that every startup right now is pitching to their investors around the world, and it's a dream that, of course, we all hope is going to come true.
Of course.
I certainly think that there's a hope and then there's a reality. The hope is that this technology is advancing at such a rapid rate. It's already being used, and I've seen it in some consulting work that I've been doing recently across biotech companies, across pharma companies, but across every company, really. Because what AI really is, and I think to put it very simply, it is a data crunching machine. It takes an input of data and then it outputs it, does the human grunt work of going through that data that used to take many, many years, and it spits out an output which we hope is going to be useful. Now, at the moment, it's still in its primary stage. It still hasn't done anything to say, wow, this is going to change the world. But we could be a few years away, and I certainly think with the rate of advancement, a few years away from it really having a major impact on medicines and, ultimately, hopefully, a cure to the ultimate disease of cancer.
Absolutely incredible. Rian Al, former lead of AI and innovation at the Turner Institute. Thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. It's been great to talk to you.
Great as always, Gabriella. Thank you.
Joining us for all the royal news is News Corp columnist Angela Mollard. Angela, thank you for joining us. King Charles and Queen Camilla are celebrating a pretty important milestone, their 20th wedding anniversary. The King and Queen have released 3 new portrait photos during their state visit to Italy, where they'll be for 4 days. The royal family captioned the post on social media: as we begin our first visit to Italy as King and Queen, we are so looking forward to celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary in such a special place and with such wonderful people. And Italy certainly is a very special place for a wedding anniversary. What can you tell us about their plans?
Well, I love the fact they just got off the plane and straight away they did a photo call for that anniversary. Look, it's 20 years, but of course they've known each other for 55 years. They first got together as a couple when they were 20 and 24. They've got a whirlwind few days, although it's slightly not as pressured as when they originally planned to go and see the Pope, but of course because of his illness that's not happening. So they're going to both houses of Parliament. They're meeting with the President and the Prime Minister. Camilla, of course, is very interested in literary things, so they're going to see Dante's grave, and they're also going to the Lord Byron Museum. There's a fly past with the combined British and Italian army. Apparently, the Italians are crazy for this visit.
Of course, there'll be so much excitement happening, but what a journey for the King and Queen. I mean, you were over in the UK covering Camilla's first public appearance, the first public appearance that that they were together back in 1998. What was that like?
That's right. I was outside the Ritz Hotel on that evening. This was all masterminded by the palace that they were going to introduce. Camilla is officially, of course, they had been together behind the scenes for years. Officially, they were going to be announced. She was so nervous. You could just see her.
Imagine.
So it was an event at the Ritz. It was a party for her sister's birthday. They went in separately, and then we were all standing outside. You've never seen photographers like it. Look at the flashes going off there. But what was really interesting at that time was that there was no suggestion. The big question was, will she be accepted? No one could ever imagine that she would be queen, and that the late queen would so heartily endorse her as the forthcoming monarch. So to see that happen over that time period shows the work that she did behind the scenes. She just quietly got on with it. She was one of the most maligned women in Britain during the time that I was living there in the 90s too. So to see her come into her own and be such a support to the king is quite incredulous.
Absolutely. And we've been given a bit of an insight into their marriage, their 20-year marriage, and there's a piece in the Times about it by Hilary Rose. It has the headline, "Arguments and a lots of laughter 20 years after they wed. These are the secrets of their relationship." And it goes into his nickname for her and how she wishes he wouldn't work so hard. What else did we learn about their relationship?
I love the nickname. It's Mehabuba, which is an Urdu word meaning beloved. which I absolutely love, but it's a bit hard to say. It's not like Pet, is it? I mean, they used to be called Fred and Gladys, and those were the names from the Goon Squad show. They used to watch that together, and that were their nicknames right from in the early days when they were first together. But what's interesting is that we learned from this piece about how much humour is their love language, really. That's what holds them together. She's very tolerant and unbothered by his sort of, he's prone to being a bit melancholy, a little bit dramatic, as we saw after the coronation with the pen not working.
Yes.
She is very cool, a very cool cucumber. But I sometimes think about them. He is also a workaholic. At a time of her life where she's 77, she wants to be like most retirees and sit back and read those books that she so adores reading. So there clearly is some compromise between the two of them. And interestingly, they both disappear occasionally at weekends to their respective houses in Gloucestershire. So he goes back to Highgrove and she'll go and have time with her family and grandchildren. And I think perhaps that's the secret of a successful marriage.
Probably is.
Having some time on their own. So, yeah, look, but lovely this weekend, although this week coming. But I think it's quite funny that they're spending their wedding anniversary with 150 dignitaries having, a slow food Italian meal. I'm sure that they'd rather have something romantic to themselves.
You'd think so, but no, we love to see it. Some more news around Prince Harry has come out. Prince Harry has reportedly ended his relationship with his cousin, Princess Eugenie, after she was spotted enjoying a night out with Piers Morgan. So Harry and Eugenie were apparently believed to still be close despite the fallout from Megxit in 2020, but their friendship has been thrown into question after a male columnist claimed that Harry had cut off contact with Eugenie, and Piers Morgan then confirmed this, saying that, well, really it was because of him, and Harry went ballistic because Eugenie was spotted with Piers Morgan and others in a pub in London. I mean, I don't think there's many people that still exist that have any sympathy for Harry anymore, but what are your thoughts on this?
I'm not 100% sure about this. Look, I can see that for Harry, who's a very volatile person, seeing Piers Morgan, who we know has, has no love lost between him and Meghan. And the reason for that is that Piers was quite outspoken about Meghan when she first came on the scene. She wanted to meet with him when she was just an actress. As soon as she got to know Harry, she wasn't interested in Piers. So there's been some biff between the two over the years. But this happened in 2023, that he was seen with them dining at this pub in Notting Hill. For the fact is that since then we've understood that Harry and Meghan have actually bought a property in Portugal very near to where Eugenie and her husband Jack Brooksbank have their own place. Also, Harry was seated next to Jack Brooksbank at the coronation, and they were chatting away. So, look, I don't know what to make of this, whether it's true or not. Look, I'm sure that Harry seeing a photo of his most beloved cousin with Piers Morgan won't have been, I can't imagine. I imagine there's a few expletives in that response. But look, they have to. How do we know that? Eugenie wasn't at the other end of some table or in the restaurant at the time, and they were captured, bumping into each other. Who knows? Yeah. I'm not 100% sure on this one.
Finally, Easter's approaching. What are the plans for William and Kate? Will they be in Sandringham?
I think this is interesting because, of course, Kate last year had just discovered that she had cancer, and we didn't see them at the church service typically that we see them at. Interestingly, there's an Aston Villa match in Paris on Thursday that William very much wants to go to. He's a huge Aston Villa fan. There's a lot of talk growing in the UK that they're going to take their kids to Europe for Easter. Of course, it's the term break for them. I think the kids are getting to that age now. If you think about it, last year was all very much spent in palaces at Sandringham and at their home in Windsor, and that there's every likelihood that now that Kate's clear of cancer, instead of going to a church service in another country home, that they may actually go and do something in Europe together, something quietly. They managed to fly under the radar quite successfully because of the rules around reporting and paparazzi and photographers that obviously covering private events. So hope they do. They deserve a trip to Europe.
They do. Angela Mollard, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.
Thanks.
And that is Power Hour. Thank you for your company. Make sure you subscribe to Sky News Australia on YouTube.